this video is going to be considering what is a reward in terms of training. So guess what, you don't get to choose that, your dog will decide what it finds reinforcing. So in training, a lot of the time we use food, but you can use toys also. I know in our previous video we discussed how to fade these things out, but in this video we're going to talk a little bit about what rewards to use and when. So when using food, I use 3 different levels of treat or payment. The first being A grade, which is human food. So that's anything that's fresh and really, really tasty, really good for recall and stuff like that. Also good for training new behaviours. Now, this is an example of some. This is some chicken pate. It's actually by JR Pet Products, and I would make this really, really small. Now, if you've got a super foodie, a dog that goes absolutely crackers for food, then you may want to start with a lower reinforcer, because if you start with too high, then the dog can get really, really giddy. But again, if you start with too low, the dog might not be motivated to work. And of course we'd need to go through the pattern of how to fade it out as discussed before. So that's grade A. Grade B could be something like dried liver or something like that, and grade C is their dinner, dried food. Now, some dogs will happily work for that, and that's fine, and the different activities would determine which reward you're using. If you were working somewhere that's a high distraction level, you might need to up your game a bit in terms of reinforcement. If you're working without distraction and your dog's quite engaged with you, you could reduce the value of the reinforcer. Now, the other thing to think about is play. So this is Aria's favourite. This is her Tug Enough Tugger, and this is what she finds most reinforcing. So if I'm doing something like recall or some of the herding behaviours or even emergency stops, this is what she gets rewarded with. I'm confident that if I use this, she'll come back from most things, bless her. And also, you need to think about sometimes the next behaviour is a reinforcer. Now that's a bit further down the line in your training. I'm thinking particularly here, if you think about gun dogs, they love to hunt. If you think about the herding breeds, they like the next position of herding. They're already getting off on that. So with those sort of dogs, your ultimate goal is that you're allowing them to reinforce for doing the behaviours they were bred to do, but through you. So you're working as a partnership. With dogs like that, if you let them go free range, they'll be self-reinforcing to their heart's content. The other thing to think about is if you're using a reinforcer, particularly like toys or food, and your dog's getting really giddy, you really want to make sure you're only paying for behaviours that you want to see. So say, for example, you've got a ball and the dog's really into the ball and it's jumping up and it's barking, and you throw the ball. Guess what you're going to see more of? Actually, you need to be using that thing that the dog wants to promote calm behaviour, and then reinforce the dog with the thing that it wants. As discussed before, you would need to be progressing your activities so that you're creating longer behaviours, and we'll talk about how to do that, how to make more reliable behaviours later on in subsequent videos. But also, if at any point you're training with something and it's the wrong level of reinforcer, the dog will tell you. So a dog that's not motivated to work probably isn't getting the right reinforcer. You might need to look at that. Or a dog that is maybe breaking position, maybe it's training in the wrong environment, but also maybe your rate of reinforcement isn't very good. But if your dog isn't doing what you want, always use that as feedback. That's feedback. It's not the dog being naughty. That's gonna help you address your next training issues. So let's just sum up. Talking about reinforcement, there's loads of different types of reinforcement. We've talked about food and toys. We've also talked about other behaviours that the dog finds rewarding, being reinforcer. But of course there are other things like praise and affection, and those are things that your dog probably probably will work for those when the behaviours are established, but you might want to top that up with some other intermittent reinforcers here and there just to keep the behaviours really, really strong and keep that motivation level high. I hope you've enjoyed that. Thank you.